Welcome to the Grow Your Business and Grow Your Wealth podcast with Gary Heldt. Gary is an expert in helping business owners put together a plan that will provide a better future for their businesses, themselves, and their families. On the podcast, Gary interviews other professionals who share his vision, and together they share secrets and strategies any business owner can use to build a better financial foundation for your business and your life.
Hey, welcome back to the podcast. This week, my guest is Rebecca Macieira-Kaufmann, and she is the founder of RMK Group, LLC. Welcome, Rebecca.
Thank you. Delighted to be here, Gary.
So, Rebecca, give us a little bit of background on you, kind of where your humble beginnings were and where you've gotten to.
Oh, humble beginnings are Rebecca's little shop in my bedroom when I was about 8, selling everything. I started my own jewelry company when I was young and sold jewelry and made it. So those are my humble beginnings. Then I spent 20 plus years working in corporate America. I've done all kinds of things, marketing, sales, operations, finance, but I ended up being president of Citibank California, then CEO of Banamex USA, and then I ran the international bank for Citigroup. And before that, I spent 13 years in small business at Wells Fargo, lending to small businesses, helping with cash flow management, all of it. So I love small business, and love helping businesses.
So what made you decide to start RMK Group?
So after, I guess it was 30 years running large divisions of corporations, I was ready to go back to just being more one-on-one instead of managing thousands of people and all of that and traveling the world. So now I help primarily startup CEOs, but also some established CEOs with challenges they face running their businesses. What do they want to do to scale? How can they scale? Often a founder of a business is an expert in a single area, sometimes deep expertise in engineering or technology or sales or marketing or product, but they haven't had the time to build out all the other skills. When you're the CEO running your own business or the head of your own business, you have to deal with payroll and finance and HR issues and strategy issues and investors or no investors. And so I find I help with that gamut, particularly the issues that come up when growing and scaling a business, and particularly the issues when how do you build a culture and start to hire the right people and bring in a really top-notch team and a high-performing team.
Yeah, I think lots of times, as people grow, lots of times they're just hiring bodies to get the bodies in there to be able to get work done and to continue. Can you talk a little bit about, the not hiring the right team and how that can hurt your culture and what it does to a business?
Oh, that's probably the most painful emotionally and costly to the business mistake a business owner can make is bringing in someone who doesn't fit. Because first of all, there's always that tendency when you hire someone to want to make it work. So people keep them too long. In general, a business owner will keep the wrong employee too long until they have the experience of being able to recognize it right away. The best thing is recognize it fast and separate quickly. Better for everyone, better for the employee that they go get a place where they fit and can excel, and better for you, the owner, so you don't take a drag on your other employees. And they say that, statistically, a wrong hire takes down the productivity of 8 people around them.
Wow.
So really important to get that right and to hire for culture. So I always talk to my clients about hiring for both aptitude and attitude. I think you can interview for aptitude and pretty much someone can do the work. I spend my time on attitude. Are they positive? Are they a team player? Are they a hands-on, get it done person? Do they need a lot of motivation? Or are they self-motivated? Whatever you want in your culture, I know for me, the kind of person I want is can-do attitude, positive, collaborative, autonomous, can-do, get it done. That may not be what you want in your culture. You may want someone who follows, your lead and waits to have permission. That's a very different kind of personality.
Sure. Besides hiring the right people, what are some of the common mistakes that you see business owners make when they try to do this?
Oh, there's so many. I'd say one of them is focus and sobriety. And what I mean by that, not about drinking, but that clear-eyed, sober view of staying focused. So it's really easy when you start a business to end up saying, people ask you to do things outside of what you say. Let's say you say, I'm a ceramic cup maker and I'm going to make coffee cups, tea cups, and they're going to be designed and beautiful. And all of a sudden someone comes to you and says, hey, can you do glassware for me? You want to take the business because you're a commercial person, but maybe glassware doesn't fit with any of your skills or any of your machinery or any of your team's talent. And all of a sudden you could go down a rabbit hole of trying to please a client that takes you off focus from your main business. So one of the things I spend time with business owners on is, what are you going to say no to?
I think that that's something that lots of times, like you said, business owners are going to jump at a chance to, hey, I can make some more money, develop or whatever. But then they find out quickly that they're not able to support that. And I think it is important for people to kind of know their limitations.
Or even if they could do it, do you want to spend your energy doing it? Is there a market for that? You may decide to switch to glassware and do both. Do you have the expertise? Do you have the funding to survive the amount of time it would take to start up that line?
Right. Rebecca, you have your own podcast and you've written books. Can you tell us about your latest book?
Sure. I don't have a podcast, but I do have a book. The book is FitCEO, Be the Leader of Your Life. It's really all my hacks of 30 years of working with large and small companies, traveling, selling, business development, you name all of it. And it has 5 sections about commitment, boundaries, intention, self-care, and heart. And it takes the reader through the commitment and what does it mean to be committed to something, and how do you commit to, how do you set up the boundaries, exactly what I'm talking about. What are you going to say yes to? What are you going to say no to? And your intention or the plan. And then how are you going to take care of yourself while you do it? Because a lot of small business owners end up working 24/7, not literally, but it feels like it, running their business and taking care of clients and the business, and don't take care of themselves. Mm-hmm. And so about how do you stay and create a sustainable business by you taking care of yourself, because everyone's modeling what you do. Right. And then ending with, striking a balance and having fun. So it's a very short book. It takes about 2 hours to read. Every chapter is about 3 pages. And each chapter ends with immediate and imperfect action, a couple of bullets of what can you do today to start to change that section of the book. It's almost a reference book. You can open up to, I'm in the middle of a crisis, like chapter 11, managing a crisis, don't let them manage you. If you're having a crisis, just keep it on your desk. Okay, what do I do? Right. Just a grounding.
That's great. Where can people get your book?
Anywhere, but Amazon, of course. I think Amazon sells 99% of all the books. For some reason, today it's $14.99. They do some specials, but Amazon or if you go to FitCEO book, all one word, FitCEObook.com, lists all the places you can order the book from.
Great. And working with business owners and trying to help them, build out their compliance processes and things like that for profitability. How do you help them, go through that? Because again, this is another piece that people need to be disciplined in. How do you help them develop that?
Sure. It starts with outlining what are the risks for your business and understanding there are always legal risks. There's always HR risks. There's always production risks and like supply chain risks. There's always safety risks if you're producing something physically. So really outlining what are all the risks for your business, including a PR risk. If a customer puts a complaint in a online channel or gives you a bad rating online. So thinking through all the risks up front, outlining them, and then saying which of these could actually kill my business. Mm-hmm. So with one of my businesses, we did what I call a pre-mortem. We planned out as though it had happened, the worst thing they could think of. For them, what was being an entirely online business, one of the risks they were really worried about was negative media in a country that the owner was not from, and they felt that there could be a risk that the country said, this person's not a local person, doesn't understand our business. And so we modeled that out and said, well, what would they do right away? Who would call whom? Who would call their top clients and in what order and how many hours? Who would call their top vendors? How would they manage their entire supply chain not to have it ripple through top customers, top supply chain? If you have a board or advisors, who calls them? The banks. Mm-hmm. So it really starts with understanding what are the risks for your business and which ones matter most and being ready for those. You have to understand all of them, but then your compliance will be around. You have to do everything legally and ethically and compliantly. And what are the regulations for your business? But understand which ones could shut you down and which ones can you have a little more time to manage through and be ready for those different scenarios.
How do you think AI is now playing into a lot of the business development and the ways that people need to change to kind of stay up with times?
Well, that is a huge question. So AI has so many components. It depends what kind of business we're talking about. Some businesses, AI could be incredibly important as like an intern, and you could sort of augment your staff in some ways with outsourcing, if you will, your preliminary research or preliminary due diligence to an AI agent. So let's say you're researching 5 suppliers, you could ask an AI agent to go out and give you all the due diligence that's publicly available on those 5 suppliers, positive and negative media, their revenues, their strengths, their time in business, their weaknesses, their complaints. It's phenomenal. That could save you weeks of your own personal time or someone on your team's time. So I think using AI as a support tool, almost in the way you would use an intern working for you, mm-hmm. which is you have to manage it. You have to be the human. That to me is probably true for all small business owners. Now it depends what business you're in. So if you're doing a lot of data entry or a lot of repetitive functions that you could just have AI agents do for you, great, or take notes for you. It really depends what business you're in. Workflow systems, so much of it can be augmented by AI, but also some businesses may want to wait a little bit and see who's on the bleeding edge and then let them bleed at the edge and then go in 6 months later and use what's available in their arena. There's just so many specialized AI tools now for each industry, right? Music and writing and editing and research and computation. So I think it depends what business you're in. Right. But definitely learn about it, because I do think it will help in many positive ways. And I also think we underestimate it for the long term. So we probably overestimate it in the short term and underestimate it in the long term. So stay engaged with it to be kind of understanding it.
Yeah.
And understand the biases, right? So there are always biases in any system because they're all human. They start with us, right? So if my bias is I like sunny weather, I might say more positive things about sunny weather in my due diligence review of a company.
Right. Yeah, I think there's still not enough known about it yet. Many business owners that I talk to, some are relying on it way too much, I think, and then other ones aren't embracing it at all. And I think that, like you're saying, I think you need to find that happy medium. What's going to work for you, depending on what industry you're in, depends on what it's going to be able to do for you.
I mean, I try to use it, try to play with it, have fun, use it.
Right. Can you give us I'm going to say one of your bright notes now in starting RKM Group with a client that you've helped, and kind of the success story there?
So it's RMK Group, yeah. And a number of successes. Let's see, what would be most interesting to the audience? I have one that I would say a lot of what I'm dealing with are like co-founder teams sometimes. And I'd say one of the biggest struggles is, how do you communicate with a co-founder? How do you partner with the co-founder over time? And how do you think through who can grow with the business as you scale? So I'd say probably some of the biggest successes has been healthy transition of founder teams into who should be the CEO, who should be the president, who should maybe not stay with the company forever because really their skill set has been outgrown. They'll still always be owners and they'll still be unbelievably valued and cherished as a co-founder, but their role should go be the innovator at the next startup. They're not really the growth person or the run a business person. I have one where the CEO became kind of executive chairman and the CFO became the CEO. And I think that was a really great transition. They're both totally engaged in the business, but one is running the business day to day, and that's their great skill set. The other one is staying more on the, even though they're executive chairman of the business, they still spend most of their time on innovating and thinking about the future and strategically driving forward versus managing HR and finance and ops and delivery. So I think know thyself is one of the things I've had a lot of success with co-founders and owners. And also I have another story with some co-founders that just creating what I call one-on-ones for the two of them with me. So one-on-ones where we have the communication, and those co-founders, they've been together 4 years now. But I think we set up successful routines about what are their swim lanes, how do they navigate when they're swimming in each other's lanes, and then they can have me join them. And that's been kind of incredible to see their partnership grow through the work we've done.
Yeah, I think that is something that's definitely important, especially if you have more than two, you have three, there tends to be two people kind of want to go in one direction, another person wants to go in another direction. But again, they developed this business and started it, as a group, and to be able to keep everything harmonious, is certainly important for sure.
So one of the things I'd say is harmonious is great, but whenever I meet a new business owner, I say probably the most important work they do up front is how will you separate? Not because you plan to, but one of the things I've done with a group of 4 co-founders is say, what are your agreed upon protocols as a team? And we wrote them together. I interviewed each of them in a group around how will you know it's time for one of you to move on, and how do you want to do it? And they agreed on respect, always driving for what's right for the business, not for them, and ensuring that it wouldn't impact their friendships, because they'd all started this together in a garage, right? And we're friends. Right. So I think these are the things so we actually wrote up the rules for how they would separate from each other, probably at year 2, and at year 4, they did actually use them. And it's been pretty healthy, not easy emotionally for the individuals, of course, but I think they are really sticking to the values that they agreed on about how they would do it. And so therefore, there's just been a lot of respect and honoring each other through the process.
Yeah, I think that kind of goes back to the whole thing, and your attorneys say it all the time about your operating agreement or your bylaws or whatever it may be, is to make sure you have those, because that really dictates how things are going to happen. And I think what you're saying too is, okay, here, let's go back and look at that and see, does it look any differently, and how can we make sure that it is done respectfully, which I think is important, because many times when people do create their operating agreement or their bylaws, they put it together and they throw it in the drawer, and It doesn't get pulled out unless there's a legal issue.
And it's so much more than like, will you buy each other out and how much will you buy each other's shares for? What I've worked with them on is, how will you come to that decision mutually? Like, so what does the company need? What does the business need now? And do my skills match? How can you have that honesty? And that's the hardest part, is when one person feels they still have the skills for where that company is. And let's say some of the other co-founders don't feel that. That's the hardest impasse, if you will. So coming to what then it takes longer than you want, right? Sometimes I say, do it fast, because that's when you hire the wrong person, but now this is a partner of a long time. So do it with respect and do it with grace, because the people who stay behind will have seen all this, so the employees who are there will see how this is done, and that defines your culture.
Right. Agreed. So Rebecca, we've covered a lot here real quick. What have I not asked you wish I had?
Just sort of what are the biggest issues about scaling a business? Like, what have you seen people get wrong?
Okay. What have you seen people get wrong?
Well, I would say I want to come back to my beginning word about scaling a business is focus. I think the things I've seen people get wrong is try to take on more markets than their product really fits. And then you get overstretched. So get really successful with your flywheel in one product market fit before you go into the next market. And then test it and make sure you really have product market fit, then grow it. But otherwise you run out of money or you run out of skill or you run out of ability. And so I think those are one of the things to watch for.
Great. Rebecca, if people like what they've heard today and they want to reach out to you and get some help, how can they reach you?
Yep. So I have a website, rmkgroupllc.com, and my email is rebecca@rmkgroupllc.com.
And then give us the name of your book again.
FitCEO. One word, FitCEO. And it'd be fantastic if you get it and love it, write a review or send me a note. Love to hear.
Great. I really appreciate your time today. I think that you've given the listeners a lot to think about, especially those that are a couple years into their business, about looking back and doing some reflection for sure. All right, thank you. This week, our guest was Rebecca Macieira-Kaufmann, and she's the founder of RMK Group LLC. Thank you, guys, and I'll see you next week.
49 faces looked to him in triumph. Over the last 12 months, they had each taken turns and promoted his business for a week at a time, driving over $987,342 in revenue. What if you had a network of 50 centers of influence who promoted your business every week for a year? Grab your copy of the #1 Amazon best-selling book, The Ultimate Guide to Growing Your Business with a Podcast, at 33% off the Amazon price by going to ultimatepodcastbook.com. Again, that website for 33% off the Amazon price is ultimatepodcastbook.com.